Boys, we may actually see justice for Dricus Du Plessis, who has earned his title shot in the middleweight division. Israel Adesanya does not deserve a rematch, and now Dana White, I presume after seeing a little bit of backlash online about saying that there should be a rematch, is starting to slightly, ever so slightly, walk back his claim on saying that Israel Adesanya is going to get the rematch next. There is a glimmer of hope, but we have to keep pushing. We got to keep up this message. No rematch, no infinite rematches for Israel Adesanya. Otherwise, we may let it slip. We need to keep it going and restore order to the middleweight division, where a champion, just because he's a star, doesn't get infinite rematches over and over again, despite being 1 and 2 in his last 3 fights. Let's start straight away here with this new press conference that Dana White had after the Dana White's Tuesday Night Contender Series, where he was asked yet again about the possible rematch for Israel Adesanya. Let's listen up.
Body language. Last thing, you were asked about a rematch. You said, that sounds right. But you got, Dricus out there saying, hey, what about me? You got Hamzat and Costa coming up in Abu Dhabi. You had Jared Cannonier there as a backup. So
one thing I don't like, though, before I even get into this, is why the media and people that are discussing this can't just say, it's nobody but Dricus. It's absolutely nobody but Dricus. Forget, maybe Jared Cannonier actually does have a claim. He is on a 2-fight win streak, and he did beat Sean Strickland, technically, even though a lot of people disagree with the decision. He does have a technical win over Sean Strickland. People are bringing up, like, the winner of Hamzat Chimaev versus Paulo Costa. Chimaev's not ranked at middleweight, and Paulo Costa, I believe, is number 6 in the division. It's Dricus Du Plessis, first and foremost, for the middleweight world championship next. I don't know why there's this list going on of options. There's one option, and it's Dricus Du Plessis. He deserves his shot at the title without being rushed into a matchup when he's guaranteed to be injured after fighting Whittaker 6 weeks before. Let's listen to what Dana White has to say, though.
All those seem like viable options. Are you
No, they don't. Only Dricus does.
Considering all those, or do you still feel like the fight to make is the rematch?
Well, I think if you remember that night, people said, well, what do you think? You think it's a rematch? I said, yeah, the rematch sounds great. Never did I say I saw the stupid fucking shit that was written,
We're getting to him, boys. The message is being heard. The media, the YouTubers, the content creators alike, we're getting to him. Okay? He's hearing that people just want that Dricus Du Plessis matchup.
By all these stupid fucking websites. Never once did I say, yes, we're going to fucking do this rematch. I said,
he never said, yes, we're going to do this rematch. But he was very clear that his best idea was to do that rematch next. So I feel like Dana White's telling a couple of lies in this interview. Because you didn't just gloss over, maybe. You said, yeah, the rematch is that's the idea. Yeah, I think it makes sense. I think it's interesting. You never make fights the night of the fight, but you immediately mentioned, even though you were provoked by a media member to talk about a potential rematch, you liked the idea of a rematch. We all watched the interview. Let's listen through this one more time to what Dana White has to say.
Options. Are you considering all those, or do you still feel like the fight to make is the rematch?
Well, I think if you remember that night, people said, well, what do you think? You think it's a rematch? I said, yeah, the rematch sounds great. Never did I say I saw the stupid fucking shit.
I don't think he said, yeah, the rematch sounds great. And we're going to cross-reference that in just a second. Don't you worry about that, okay? We're going to see exactly what Dana White really said, rather than, yeah, rematch sounds great.
Shit that was written, by all these stupid fucking websites. Never once did I say, yes, we're going to fucking do this rematch. I said, yeah, the rematch sounds, we'll see what happens. There's obviously lots of options out there, and we'll see what happens. But yes, I'm still not opposed to an Israel rematch. We'll see how it goes.
That's the annoying part at the end. We have to make him opposed to an Israel Adesanya rematch. Just because you're popular and you paint your nails and you violate dogs doesn't mean that there should be infinite rematches for you. Ever. That should never be a thing. Like, this is like McGregor just losing. I'll give him a rematch. Like, that wouldn't have happened to McGregor. You know what I'm saying? It happened in the Poirier fight, but when there's a title on the line, it's a little bit different. You have to take things a little bit more seriously for the good of the sport. But one thing I don't like is he never mentioned there was other options. Otherwise, he would have brought it up at the post-fight press conference before, which we're going to listen to now, to see what Dana really said, after, of course, being provoked by the media on this question of whether or not there should be a rematch. But remember, he didn't go on to say, you know, there's an Israel Adesanya rematch, there's Du Plessis, there's Cannonier. He said there's an Israel Adesanya rematch, and then he took a couple digs subconsciously at Dricus Du Plessis to say that, you know how much I hate people that don't take opportunities when their foot is done and they can't even walk or kick. You know how much I don't like it when Dricus Du Plessis won't... Basically what he said is this. You know how much we don't appreciate Dricus Du Plessis taking a fight injured so he can lose. You know what I'm saying? Like, he just doesn't want to give Dricus his fair shot at the belt, it seemed like. That's what it seemed like to fans of MMA. Let's listen to what Dana White did say after the question of a rematch was brought up by Oscar Willis.
Last one for me, just going back to the madness
Jesus, Mac Life. Sort your audio out. Jesus.
of the main event. You know, traditionally we see dominant champions get an immediate rematch, right? But Israel just had one of those with the Pereira fights. So do you kind of... I know this is a Tuesday question, but do you sort of think, well, let's just book it again because Israel looks so off? Or do you just sort of see how the division plays out and leave Israel on the side for a moment?
No,
I mean, absolute cope from Oscar Willis about because he looked so off. I hate that. He did not look off, and we're going to get to more of that in a second because Dana's still saying that at this new press conference. But listen, Oscar Willis, even at the end of that, didn't just suggest a rematch. He said, no, let's just leave Israel Adesanya on the side. He proposed another option to where they don't give Israel Adesanya a rematch, and Dana disagreed with it.
Because Israel looks so off? Or do you just sort of see how the division plays out and leave Israel on the side for a moment?
No.
Or do you just leave Israel Adesanya on the side for a moment and let the division play out and see how the division plays out? Let's have a look here.
Israel on the side for a moment.
No, I think you do the rematch. Absolutely. I mean, the rematch is interesting.
No. I think you do the rematch. Absolutely. Absolutely you do the rematch. Now, Dana, I don't think that's what you claimed you said. Yeah, I think the rematch is an option. And, you know, I never said, yeah, you do the rematch. I mean, absolutely is a strong word, Dana White. We're getting him to walk back on his words. I don't want to push this too much in case Dana goes, oh, they think they control me. We're doing the rematch. That's what I'm worried about here. So maybe I'll just make this one video and then call it quits because I don't want to put too much pressure on him. But because Dana does seem that type of guy who says, oh, well, they're not going to tell me I can't do the rematch. I'm doing the rematch. And if he loses that, he's getting a trilogy. Like, we'll see what happens here. But this sounds like you were saying pretty strongly that you think Adesanya deserves a rematch.
And because Israel looks so off? Or do you just sort of see how the division plays out and leave Israel on the side for a moment?
No, I think you do the rematch. Absolutely. I mean,
I think you do the rematch. Absolutely. You do the rematch.
the rematch is interesting.
The rematch is interesting. No, it's not. He got scored. He doesn't deserve a rematch. He's already had his immediate rematch. You don't get infinite immediate rematches. This has never been a thing. Why is this now a thing with Israel Adesanya? I get it. You want the Pansy to be champ, okay? You don't want Strickland to be champ. You probably don't want Du Plessis to be champ either. You want your golden boy, Israel Adesanya, to be the champion. We get it. But we don't just give him infinite opportunities in rematches when there's a bunch of contenders, and Cannonier is a viable option. He beat Strickland, but Du Plessis is the only option first. So you don't go to no one else with their title shot offers without going to Du Plessis first. That's what needs to be done. End of discussion. And we just found out that Dana is walking back his claims a little bit, okay? Because he seemed to think that he never said that there should be a rematch, but he clearly did.
Hi, Dana.
But we're going to move on to another moment in this as well, where he goes on again about the excuses for Israel Adesanya. And this is where the reporter kind of says a little bit of a dig at Dana White as well, if you listen closely here.
And on that note, do you think that maybe there's too much attention being paid to Izzy's poor performance and not enough towards Sean's good performance?
No, I think
That was definitely, instead of, do you think there's too much attention being paid? That was, do you think that you only gave excuses for Adesanya and never mentioned a single good thing about Strickland? He mentioned a bit of good things about Strickland in this one. But in that post-fight press conference, you saw the other video I made, he just listed off excuses for Israel Adesanya. And we're going to get to some more of that towards the end of this video as well.
there's two sides to that. Listen, Izzy did not look good that night. He looked slow. He looked lethargic. He looked whatever.
Because Strickland was beating him up and dropped him in the first round and concussed him badly and swole his eye nearly shut after a follow-up of barrage of punches.
And, you know, what a lot of people are saying, that's right. But Strickland felt it, knew it, stayed right in his face, and went after it. And you, like I was just telling, him earlier, it's like he fucking felt it. And he couldn't wait to get back out of that corner, to get back in there and win that title.
So it's like the only reason Strickland did well is he could feel that Israel Adesanya was off. Trust me, in that corner, he felt that Adesanya was terrible. Like, no, you get flattened nearly in round 1 and follow-up shots over and over and over again. You're not going to fight the same way. And by the way, Adesanya had a decent second and third round. But Strickland just picked it up, and there was too much damage on Adesanya. These guys aren't superheroes. You know what I'm saying? He's getting his nose popped. He's getting his eye swollen shut. His lip busted. While Strickland don't have a mark on him. The reality is, Israel Adesanya looked off because he couldn't really land a single clean punch on Sean Strickland, and he was getting frustrated. It was Strickland's defense, in hindsight, that made that fight what it was.
And I've got to ask a McGregor question. I'm sure you're sick and tired of answering these questions.
But here's the other thing too. When you have a champion that's been as dominant and as good as Israel has, it's normal to when they lose to say, "Wow, he didn't look right tonight," and all that good shit. Conor McGregor.
I want to speak about that as well. When you have a champion that's been as dominant as Israel Adesanya, the majority of his title defenses, outside of winning against Whittaker and then the performance that he had against Paulo Costa, which was amazing, he lost to Jan Blachowicz, had a terrible performance that arguably he could lose against Yoel Romero, by the way. The Whittaker rematch, he lost. The Vettori fight, he outpointed him slightly every round. The only real dominant performance, he lost to Pereira first fight and then won the second one. The only real dominant performance that Israel Adesanya has had as middleweight champion was the rematch against Alex Pereira outside of the Paulo Costa one. As a defense of a belt. You know what I'm saying? Like, it feels like people have a weird misconception about the dominance of Israel Adesanya. He's had nights. Like, if Vettori did a bit more in 3 of the rounds that he fought Israel Adesanya for, would he have looked off? Would it be Adesanya looking off? Because he looked very similar to the way he looked in the Strickland fight when he fought Marvin Vettori. But the difference is, Strickland's better than Vettori on the feet. And that's what we found out. But I thought that was a little bit of cope there as well. Just chucking a few more excuses out. But at least he still gave a tiny bit, with force, of respect to Sean Strickland. But we move on to another moment here as well. Because a lot of people were saying that Israel Adesanya was injured and there was all these problems with him. And that was one of the main reasons why Dana White said that he was off, there was this, there was something about him, because he mentioned that he said to Israel Adesanya in the cage, "Hey, you okay, buddy?" You know what I mean? After the fight, and Israel Adesanya said, "I'll tell you backstage," as if there was something big to tell him about, like maybe he broke his foot in round 1, broke his hand in round 1. And that was sort of the basis as to why Dana White came out confidently saying that there must have been something wrong with him. Because Israel Adesanya told him in the cage, "I'll tell you later about something." So let's find out what Israel Adesanya had to say to Dana White after the fight backstage when he had something to tell him about as to why his performance was so bad.
Were you surprised that Israel Adesanya didn't speak at the press conference? He came in, said something, and then dipped?
Yeah, so I asked him, I told you guys that night, I asked him in the octagon, I said, "You okay?" He said, "I'll talk to you later."
As I just mentioned.
I bumped into him in the back, and he told me about as much as he told you. So, yeah, it was strange.
So nothing then. So he had nothing to tell you. I'm sure Dana walked up to him like, "What was it? What do I tell the media? Was it a broken hand? Yeah, I mean, what do I come out with in the next press conference? Tell me. Broken hand, injury, illness? What was it, dude? I need an excuse." And Israel Adesanya's just like, "Oh, there's nothing." So, like, this is really going to hurt the Israel Adesanya people defending him on Twitter that I've seen. You know what I mean? Because he don't even have an excuse for Dana White that he mentioned he had. You know, "I'll tell you later about my excuses that I had for why I lost that fight." I wonder if he whispered in Dana's ear, "Strickland's pretty good, you know." You know what I mean? "Strickland's got a nasty jab." You know what I mean? I wonder if he mentioned that in Dana's ear instead. So there wasn't an excuse. So he had nothing to say to Dana about an excuse that he had. He had nothing to mention to him backstage. And now Israel Adesanya's going to try and regroup. He doesn't deserve the rematch. Dricus Du Plessis deserves his title shot. Here's what I think, honestly. The reason why they booked those fights the way they did was silly from the get-go, and I said that in the build-up. I might make a whole video about how the UFC is trying to skewer these decisions in fights and results in fights because they tried the same thing with Aljo. Remember they did the same thing with Stipe when he went into the Ngannou fight, or when he went into the DC fight the first time. He just went 5 rounds with Ngannou. Quick turnaround. We got DC coming up. Get rid of Stipe. When Aljo has to make a quick turnaround for the O'Malley fight, and O'Malley comes in saying, you better be ready to cut weight, like he knows that Aljo's going to have to make a quick turnaround, and there was a whole problem with that. And then with this, Du Plessis won and Whittaker won. Let's keep Adesanya as champion. Have Whittaker and Du Plessis go to war, and they have to fight 6 weeks later on less than ideal terms. BS. Absolute BS. And I'm glad that he's starting to walk back these claims about a rematch. There's hope still for justice for Du Plessis. Okay? We have to keep pushing. We have to keep doing it. We have to restore order and get Dricus Du Plessis his title shot that was rightfully earned. You don't beat Whittaker and not get a title shot at middleweight. He is on a win streak, undefeated in the UFC, all finishes but one. He deserves his shot. Simple as that. He's beaten Darren Till, Brunson, not 2 great wins, but then Whittaker by dominant finish, winning the first round, cutting him open, out wrestling him, and then TKOing him in the second round. Dricus Du Plessis title shot, or we riot. And I mean that, okay? There'll be consequences, Dana. You best act accordingly. I don't want to push it too much, though, because, again, I have a feeling that Dana might see this video and go, oh, really? Oh, that's what he thinks, does he? Okay, I'm doing the Adesanya fight. And if he loses, he's getting another title shot. You don't tell me what to do, media. So maybe after this video, I'm going to lay off a little bit. But we'll see. Like and subscribe. Thank you for watching. Toodle Pip. I'll see you later. Dricus Du Plessis title shot, or we riot.